Now for basic information on how to hold the Wiimote, it changes per instrument. For the violin, the A button should be facing down. Your thumb should be on the A button, and the tip of your pointer finger should be resting on the B button, like such. For the guitar, this is just one massive pick. The A button is oriented vertically, or towards the ceiling. Your thumb pressed on the A button, this is the top of the pick. As you strum, your wrist should rotate. The keys layout obviously doesn't use the Wiimote, so let's move on to the drums. For the drums, your thumb should be resting on the A button, facing up, and your pointer should be resting on the bottom, and you rotate your wrist this way. Now starting with the violin, these 4 buttons represent the 4 positions, or rather the 4 finger positions on the violin. Well, rather than creating half steps, which became too difficult for non-violinists, there are only 4 notes here, and you organize what notes they play based on this tuning element over here. So the lowest element, right now set at G3, is the lowest note. All the notes above it, all the strings above it, are based on this lowest note. So even if the lowest note, the lowest string is G, you can choose between different keys. Say I want my piece to be in the key of C, but my register to start with G3. And you can also choose between major, natural minor, harmonic minor, or you can custom set any scale type by opening this file and setting the whole step in half-step pattern. So for 0 preset, which is major, 2-2-1, 2-2-2-1. 3, 4, and 5 are for custom presets. The synchronization deals with the fact that the Wiimote and the iPhone don't exactly sync perfectly. Unlike a real violin, you need to bow after your finger's already been held on the string. If not, you'll play a different note than you intended. 40 milliseconds for the iPhone delay should be enough, but for some people who are running through Wi-Fi, or a Wi-Fi router rather than using an ad hoc network, you might want to tweak with this if you find that your setup is not playing the notes that you wanted. The velocity of the bow can also change. If you leave it on fixed, then every note you play will always have this fixed velocity, 80. Remember the values between 1 and 128. For bow dependent, the slower you bow, the softer it plays. The louder you bow, the louder it plays. And lastly, for bow control, there are 2 ways to control what string you're playing. For button control, if you're using button control as a means of bow control, by pressing A, you play the E string. Pay attention to the left because you can see what buttons I'm pushing. You press A and B. You play the A string. By just pressing the B button, the back button, you play the D string. And by pressing down, you're playing the G string. Again, the highest string, next highest, and the lowest. If you change it to gesture recognition, then if the Wiimote is oriented vertically, you're playing the highest note. At a 45-degree tilt, the next highest note. At a 90-degree tilt, the next highest note. And pointed slightly downwards at 125 degrees or more, we'll play the lowest note, in this case a G. This might take some getting used to. So most beginners, I suggest you stay on button control, but for violinists it might be more intuitive to use gesture recognition. Now for the guitar, there are 2 different settings, a solo and acoustic guitar. You switch between these 2 by pressing the home button on your Wiimote. Let's start with solo guitar. Solo guitar plays 1 string at a time. And like with the violin, you can tune the lowest note of the G string in lieu of, say, a capo. So you want it to go higher, click and drag this to a higher note, lower, etc. But for now, let's keep this around E2. Now below you see synchronization. The same thing as with the violin. Your finger needs to be down on the iPhone before you strum with the Wiimote. or else the algorithm won't know what note you're trying to play. Because remember, a MIDI packet that's being sent is a one-time deal, unlike a real acoustic instrument in which you can change while you're playing the instrument. Strum sensitivity is the amount of movement you want your wrist to move in order to actually strum the string. By going higher, it becomes much more sensitive to your strum. By bringing this number closer to 1, then it becomes much more difficult. Now let's go to acoustic guitar. Remember, you press the home button in order to switch, or you can directly just click. Same thing, tuning as before. Now the sensitivity, this is the amount of movement you want to move your wrist. Defaults are usually okay, but say you want to be able to pluck individual strings more easily, then you might increase the separation between the strings, and say your wrist is turning too much, meaning this height that you start strumming at is too high. Now these are arbitrary units, but the lower this number is, then the lower your wrist is when you pluck that first string. My suggestion is if you're just starting out, leave the defaults. Now the key, you'll find that the keyboard setup on the software is different than what you see on the iPhone. This is done deliberately. So on the iPhone, hold it in your hands with two thumbs on each side. Thus, you can play a scale by alternating your thumbs on each side. We do this because the iPhone screen is just too small to be able to play any type of piece without running into the other notes. Then each thumb can play any of the black keys from either side. But for simplicity's sake, we leave the layout as a real piano on the software itself. Finally, drum seems a little more complicated, but it's actually much easier to work with. If you want a much more intuitive drum set, consider downloading the Invisible Drums program, as the drums on the Invisible Instruments software, this program we're using now, is much more limited. So the layout is relatively simple. From on and off, these correspond to buttons on the Wiimote. You press A, it should light up, B, etc. Now if I turn A off, A button no longer does anything. So you can choose and assign whatever MIDI note, whatever velocity, and whatever duration of the MIDI note you would like each button to have. For now we have set it to a basic setup. Down, up, left, and right are the motions of your wrist as you're strumming. So normally, if I just hit down, it'll hit a hi-hat. But say you want to go double time, you might turn on up as well. Now these are all customizable, but remember you need to save your settings before you close. So if you click Save As, the first screen you're going to save is for the port settings. The second you save is specifically for the drum presets. The three squares on the left, you'll see on your iPhone it says Assign 1, Assign 2, and Assign 3. These are down here, and these serve just as Wiimote buttons. You can assign them to anything. Right now I've assigned Assign 1 to a crash cymbal. Now say you like one setting, but you want to be able to change between different settings rapidly. So this setting I'm going to store in preset 1. And let's say I would rather have this note be a crash, but not all the time. So I'm going to save this as preset 2. Now you see on your iPhone the three yellow buttons, preset 1 and 2. This allows you to switch quickly between your existing presets. So normally a downstroke will just hit a hi-hat. If on my iPhone I hit preset 2, suddenly it's controlling a crash. And obviously you can get much more complex than this, but your iPhone hand controls the three presets as well as 3 extra buttons, while your Wiimote essentially is your entire drum. And if you don't think you can do that much with just one hand, you forget you have many buttons in your control. And again, if you ever want to return to the default values, just click Default Values, and it returns you to the original values that the program started out with. Now lastly, remember to save your settings. Click Save. The first file is a JSON file, and the second file is just for your drum presets, so that next time when you start the program, or if you want to use the same settings, you can just reload them here.